with the barriers to entry decreasing for building something, I think we'll just see a lot more smart people who have lived experience of something that they're really annoyed with in the consumer space, from, oh, I hate this dating app, it's so crap, but I have never known how to build an app. Now, but I have this like amazing idea, which I've talked to so many people about who agree with me too. Those types of people, I think are probably going to build something, are going to want to build cool things. And I think 99% of those things will be absolute crap, but there'll be a 1% there, which is absolutely awesome. And that 1% will, like the size of that will generally increase over time. And yeah, my hope is that it leads to more great consumer companies being built.
Hey, Seyon, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on, Manny. Yeah, doing pretty well. London is much sunnier than it normally is. So yeah, feeling good.
Very neat. I'm here in Chicago. It's pretty cloudy and rainy, so I think we've swapped weathers for today. Good deal for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an introduction. What are you working on?
For sure. Look, I'll give you an introduction to the firm and then myself. So I am our head of research, a fund called Concept Ventures. We are the UK's biggest dedicated pre-seed fund. We've been investing in the pre-seed space for the last 7 years, and we've got some pretty cool companies today. I think our most prolific one so far is a company called 11 Labs, which you might be familiar with. We were the first backer back in July of 2022, and then gone on to pretty impressive heights of success since. And look, we've got a bunch of other companies through our pipeline and, gone on to raise great amounts of money and doing a lot of good for the world, like Treefairer, Visa, across a bunch of spaces. But for us, the thing that's always been at the root of all of our investments has been our conviction in people and the founders themselves. And that's why as a fund, we like to call ourselves very people-centric. We want to find out what makes founders exceptional, and we want to find them before everyone else does. That's our that's our thing. And so at the fund, that's what I focus on. So I'm trying to unearth those signals, those early signals before anyone else, of what makes founders truly exceptional, what makes great founding teams. And yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Awesome. And the way that we connected was through a project you were working on, a founder assessment platform tool that you were developing. What's the goal of the tool? And just tell us about what you're building.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll give you a bit of context, I guess, into how we think about this space. It's no surprise that early stage VC, a lot of the investing is through gut feel, right? Everyone just tries to say, yeah, I've been in this industry for 10 years. I kind of know what a great founder feels like. But we've never bought into that view. We've always wanted to bring data and validity to why we're investing in people. And that's the biggest thing that's missing in the space. When you're investing as early as we are, which is at pre-seed, there is no data, there is no traction, there is no signal towards how great a market is going to be in 10 years' time. You only have the founding team. And so we want to bring as many data points to people, to teams, and invest off the back of that. And so what we've been doing over the last 10 years is building all these data points, qualitative, quantitative, through a process and, investment flow that we've iterated on for the last 7 years. We've always been collecting all these data points. And I think more recently, a task for us was to then say, hey, look, we've got a lot of interesting data on some pretty awesome founders. We've got to find a way to actually be able to view all these things. One, to be able to compare different, batch them maybe by year, batch them by category, and try and spot a few more trends and be able to benchmark future founders that come through our pipeline across this big database that we've now built out. And yeah, again, we've kind of connected through this trip to SF that I had a couple of weeks back. And again, like I said, we're UK based, and obviously SF is one of the tech capitals of the world. We're the huge density of amazing founders. And so when I was out there speaking to a lot of cool people, I really wanted a way to house all of the data points and all the qualitative insights I was gathering. So I was looking to a few different platforms. Replit was obviously one of them, but there were a couple others there as a place to build. Because again, I'll caveat it, and we'll go into this with more detail, but I'm not a technical person. So I was looking for something that would be super easy to use for a non-technical person and just see what I can make that would fit the bill. So yeah, that's what brought us together.
Awesome. And so this platform is to help you have all your data in one place, look for trends across different founders, and then just help you compare new founders or potential new founders to the folks that you've already worked with. When we first started chatting, you had already put together a prototype of this platform. You were using another AI code generation platform. And, then we started talking about, what you can do in Replit. So tell me a little bit about what you built in that first prototype and why it was helpful to try to build that on Replit to kind of help you move or make progress on the project.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing to know about it's a couple things to know about me, I suppose, and how I approached it, right? One is I'm not technical, but I'm very precise about how I want something to look and feel. Maybe I should have been, honestly, I would have been a builder in another life. But yeah, I was very particular about how I wanted this product to feel, how I wanted this website or platform to be used, and also what it would look like from an aesthetics point of view. So with kind of armed with those parameters, I thought, okay, I started off with one, which I thought was pretty good for the UI side. It's pretty easy to mock up. And I wanted speed. I really wanted to just be able to build something pretty fast. So I went with the first option, which actually spun up something pretty useful as an MVP. Love the look of it, love the feel of it. And I'm pretty excited. And then I thought, okay, cool, let me just put some dummy data in this. And then I could, blow up, put my stuff in it. And I shared it with the rest of the team, expecting a lot of excitement back. But then, it just became pretty apparent that it just wasn't working. Something had broken beyond the great UI. Something had broken on the back end. And I just again, because I'm not technical, I couldn't solve that, right? And I was literally banging my head against the wall of trying to interact with the platform, trying to figure this out. And it just didn't work. But then, I was looking for options, right? Like, what else could I be doing? There's also more functionality I wanted to be able to have, which I'll touch on to later. Then I met Alex and, from Replit, and he was like, dude, I'm pretty sure we can build what you're doing pretty fast. So just send it over to us. And so that's how we got introduced. And I think the key unlock that I realized between Replit and the other platform was just the ease of building a database on the actual platform itself. That's the most critical function for what I described, what we're building, right? I needed a place to house all of this data. The UI was personal taste, but I really needed something great. And that's what Replit already kind of came with, which is super cool. But then so that was the main factor that won me over. But there were a couple of other bits which were definitely delights, right? One was being able to add other users and collaborate with me. Again, even being you, right? Just being able to share it with you so you can dive in and test things out and see if it all looks okay. Super helpful. And as with the rest of the team and more tech savvy kind of colleagues, that was super useful as well. I think the overall thing that kind of left me impressed was, I know maybe the whole point of Replit was starting off as being a developer first kind of platform, but as someone not technical, being able to use it and interact with it and actually spin up something as fast that looks as good with the functionality I need, that was the biggest thing that I love.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's important context. I think there are a couple of newer AI coding platforms out there, and I think they do a good job of getting the front end out pretty fast, but then it gets tricky when it gets to the back end setup. And the thing to know about Replit is that it's been around for a while, previous to the LLM boom, and for a long time it was a standalone development, cloud-based development environment with a whole bunch of tools and resources that developers expect to stand up a fully fledged application. Well, then the LLM boom hits and they see an opportunity to bolt on AI on top of that. And so you have all the tools and all the expectations for developers, but then you have the LLM and the AI component to streamline that and make it much easier for people that don't have a technical background to get started with building their own applications. And so that's been my experience as well. There's a couple of newer AI coding platforms out there, and again, nice UI. But then if you want to go from idea to an actual deployed application that you can share with people and that's actually functional, for me, it's hard to beat Replit on that basis.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, definitely agreed. that was the main takeaway that I had as well. I think broadly a lot of other people in a similar position and background to me will probably find too. Building something with a nice UI in like a minute, very nice to win you over initially. And that's obviously like a pretty big peak to cross for a lot of people. But I think you also want them to stay on the platform. And the key unlock for that is, can you actually go from the nice UI to actually deploying something as well in the app as easy? And yeah, I was just banging my head against the wall way too many times. And that frustration is never a positive experience, right? And that's it. And like we're in such an exciting time now where, people experience that back in the day with big coding, right? That was a key barrier to entry for so many people. And now this whole vibe coding shift has now removed that, right? Anyone can kind of build. So it feels a bit defeating when you're like, okay, I can finally build something myself. But then I'm going to now like just prompt this thing to hopefully understand what I'm saying and help me fix this problem that maybe I don't even understand myself. But Replit was way better at kind of managing that experience for me, which I really enjoyed. And also, the other thing I'd probably add there as well is it was interesting to see the log of rationale and choices and the kind of guide in between each step. I think that was one thing, maybe as more of a curious person, I want to understand between each step, which I didn't get with the other platform. I want to learn actively, like what am I doing? Why is the platform doing it the way it's doing it? What does it mean for me? Just for my learning experience. And so even having that as like a record to then go back to if I ever wanted to, that was a huge benefit.
100%. Yeah, this is sort of one of the underappreciated aspects of vibe coding and working with AI is, I think, AI is great at setting up a prototype. But if you can try to follow along with what AI is doing, one, that's going to help you develop some intuition for that code base. And that's going to be helpful when you want to debug and go and maybe do some research and provide some additional context for the agent when it needs it. And B, to add new features moving forward. So maybe you want to describe something in detail that you want agent to do. It's better if you understand the code base. And then 3, to engage with other folks and helping you add additional features or to stress test your application. So if you know what's going on in the code base, you're just better able to communicate that with other people as you're bringing them on board. There's also an opportunity for you to learn and to build that skill set and that intuition so that you can do more and build more interesting things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also think for the phase of adopting it's in now, the type of people that are picking it up and using it, I wouldn't say it's on the mainstream of people. I think it's probably in a category of people that still are curious and want to go through a learning curve. And also, these platforms still aren't a maturity level where anyone can just build a full end-to-end platform anyway. I think at that point, you don't need to learn. But the people now are like, okay, cool. I'm smart enough that I kind of know a category I want to build in. I know what I want to build. I have these parameters that I know I just want to see, but help me solve the technical stuff. But also help me learn through that process too. So I think that log of what is it doing, what it's doing, what can you take away from it, and like coaching you through it is a key step, which maybe other platforms are just overlooking.
Absolutely. You also mentioned the fact that it was pretty straightforward for us to collaborate on Replit. I think that's also really underappreciated. It is going to be very important, especially for vibe coders. So I think, like if you're a product manager, if you're not necessarily technical, you're not expected to code, at the very least, you can stand up an MVP of something and, get something working to kind of help flush out your vision and to help kind of with the initial build out. But then you're going to want to share that with someone that does have a really good technical background or someone that has to actually build it. And so the ability to share that easily, to collaborate efficiently, and do that well across different organizations and also within your own internal organization, I think that is going to be a must-have feature for vibe coders moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. That's the biggest one as well, and we can definitely chat more on like the broader vibe coding trends and like the patterns we're seeing. But one of the biggest ones I'd say is, previously there was always, I think, like a general thesis with VCs that you'd want to back technical people, right? People who can build. So the adaptability, the ability to pivot is a lot stronger with those teams, right? But now again, like we say, barriers to entry are so low. With anyone being able to build, you just have to back smart people who have a vision for the world and maybe a unique insight, right? But at some point, you still have to hire those technical people to build out the broader vision or the journey towards the broader vision. And the collaboration piece is going to be a pretty massive part of that. And sure, yeah, underappreciated now, but optimizing that workflow is probably going to be quite a big, again, maybe let's see how it plays out, but I do think it's going to be quite an important phase to optimize well as like maybe a differentiator with these different platforms. Because we're seeing so much as well. Like the US, there've been plenty of cool companies spinning out their take on this sort of stuff. And we're seeing more in Europe, like Lovable, for example, etc. And I've had experience with quite a few of those too. But yeah, the collaboration piece probably came most. It might have been the only one that had it, and that was Replit.
Awesome. What are you thinking next for your project?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. I think there's a lot of direction we're going to take it. I think probably two things, right? One is just the quality of data. That's going to be the biggest piece for us. There are so many, the town density in London, in the UK, is something we're so excited about. We went to SF just to get a feel for the culture, a feel for the people there. But we're super excited by talent in the UK and Europe. And there's so many great founders who scale great companies, and there are so many more success stories that are coming out of them that we just want to collect as much data from these founders as possible. That's going to be our next journey, our kind of like next project to tackle there. But I think from a platform phase, like once we've collected all that data, it's going to be spinning up a great story through all that data and visualizing it through this dashboard. I think that's what's missing right now with this piece and why people aren't very excited. I think broadly, like everyone knows gut-based approach to venture doesn't work. Everyone wants to be able to find out more data points on why this person's amazing. We know it's there. We've got the early signals already. I think we want to paint a really cool picture that people can interact with via our website, via our platform, and bring it to life. And actually hopefully release something to the public that we can show. So I mean, let's say I'd love to demo with you live. Maybe there's going to be another podcast for that, for sure. But I think, yeah, for now, it's going to be, we're going to try and make the platform look amazing, feel amazing, and make sure we're just super happy with the quality of founders in there and the data we've collected. And then we'll launch it to the public.
Awesome. No, I love this example. I think it's it's emblematic of a broader trend that I see playing out of companies and individuals being able to build out their own custom application, their own custom software to do exactly what they wanted to do, to look exactly how they wanted to look, and build these internally without necessarily needing a full software development team. And I am just so pumped to continue to see this, not just in your space, but I think this is going to play out in many, many different types of industries. I guess maybe pivoting a little bit. So you're getting your hands dirty a little bit with the vibe coding stuff. You're making some progress. I got an early look at what you're building. It looks really cool. It looks awesome. How do you think about this broader trend, either from like your perspective as a professional, but also your perspective
as an investor?
Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of, how are you feeling about the whole vibe coding trend?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe I'll speak to the last point first on the founders, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's definitely an interesting thing where previously I think VCs tend to optimize for technical teams because of that pivotability, the ability to just move on to different ideas quickly. But it's just so much easier to build now, right? The other thing we always index for, and so I guess with that skill set maybe being commoditized to a certain extent, i.e. anyone can sort of at least build a quick MVP, the time to launch it has been shortened so much. And actually now, that maybe might be the easiest part. The thing that really can't be replicated and might be the biggest like nuance or like unique factor here is going to be what is that founding team or that founder's unique insight, right? That's not going away anywhere. That can't be easily replicated or shipped off to some other platform. And so I think we're going to see a structural shift in the types of teams that VCs are backing. Normally it's co-founders. It's normally a team with, I think there's some data which shows teams of 3 at least tend to perform better over time in terms of the kind of success they reach after founding a company. We might be seeing a lot more solo founders, non-technical teams building and launching things. That's probably the first trend we'll kind of see, more capital flowing to those those types of founders. But yeah, it's still up for grabs as to how those teams then evolve. At what point do technical people come in? How important is technical competency? And what kind of tech talent, what happens to the tech talent side of things here as well. Yeah.
So from a founder perspective, makes sense. So more of an indexing on the story, the narrative, the background of the founder, assuming that the technical part can be magnified using AI tools. Yeah. How does it change the types of investments that you're looking at and categories that you're looking at? So there's a lot of talk on Twitter around SaaS kind of being problematic now. So if everybody can put together their own application, if you're a SaaS company, how do you maintain that moat? So I'd kind of love to hear your thoughts in terms of the actual spaces that you're going to be investing in. How does this trend change that? Or maybe it's too early to know or to kind of bring into the calculation.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think too early to know. You're also probably asking the wrong person, to be honest. Because I have never been a fan of SaaS, B2B SaaS for sure. I personally, on the investment side, I focus on our consumer investment. And that's just because, again, I love seeing the impact it brings to the world. Shaping personal stories is so interesting. And that's kind of what we're seeing here with these platforms too, right? And actually, generally, I don't think this is too early a signal. I think one early insight we're kind of picking up on is we're seeing a pipeline of previously exited B2B founders or SaaS founders or people from B2B, a SaaS background, actually trying to build consumer apps, right? And it's because, everyone's a consumer, right? Everyone has a story of something that they're annoyed with from a shopping experience or a dating experience or whatever it is. Everyone has that experience, right? A SaaS exposure or B2B exposure is limited to a few perhaps. And so with everyone sharing this consumer insight, we're seeing a lot more people actually building in the consumer space. And again, I suppose it's been easier traditionally for people to maybe build SaaS companies because, the founding stories there tend to be, it's one person who used to work at a big tech company, tech company X. He or she has worked with a couple other folks there who now want to join together. One is technical, so that they're going to solve the building part of the problem, and they'll come together and build a thing. With consumer, the profile tends to be younger people, get less technical experience, and so they've always tried to force a relationship or have to go with someone maybe that they don't know as well, and that's always going to be a problem for the strength of a co-founding relationship. But now, again, with the barriers to entry decreasing for building something, I think we'll just see a lot more smart people who have lived experience of something that they're really annoyed with in the consumer space from, I hate this dating app, it's so crap. But I have never known how to build an app now. But I have this amazing idea, which I've talked to so many people about who agree with me too. Those types of people, I think I'm probably going to build something, or going to want to build cool things. And I think 99% of those things will be absolute crap. But there'll be a 1% there, which is absolutely awesome. And that 1% will, the size that will generally increase over time. And yeah, my hope is that it leads to more great consumer companies being built. And just from the early conversations I had over in SF, it seemed to be the case as well. There are a lot more B2B focused VCs. We're seeing a lot more of their pipeline being filled by consumer companies and founders that weren't as technical, or founding teams that weren't as technical as I previously thought.
Awesome. And I cut you off there a little bit. I think you were going to talk to us about, how vibe coding is going to change your day-to-day work or the tools that you get to build. Tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I also think it kind of influences that consumer perspective as well, in the sense, and as a VC, you feel it quite acutely as well, I think, where there are so many things. We're a small team, right? We're 7 people, and I think we move pretty fast as a team. We try and approach the things we do in venture as a business in quite a startup sense. And so we're always looking for new things to do, looking for new things to build, look for new approaches and processes. And when you're dealing with a pretty static tech stack of only a few players here and there that you can really mix in and out of, it's poor. It leads to a poor experience without flexibility. So even in our own team, we're seeing each of us build our own workflows with certain tools or mocking up certain things that work for our own workflows. Because also VCs, you might come together as a firm of 7 people, but you might each focus on different verticals. You have different networks, and you eventually want things that work around your approach to working, right? And personalized things that have the context of how you like to work and what you want out of your work. So I think, as a professional, especially if you're a VC, you're probably going to be building your own tools, your own platforms, and your own workflows. I think that will hopefully expand across different sectors, different industries, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more people all over the place using platforms like Replit.
Thanks for the conversation. Tell us how people can connect with you. How can people follow your work?
Yeah, for sure. We are, so you can, in terms of fund, we're Concept Ventures, Concept VC, based in the UK. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Seyon Indran. That's probably the easiest way, but you've got all my email info and all that stuff on the website too.
I'll make sure to include those links in the comment section below. Thanks for coming on the show.
For sure. Appreciate it, Manny. Thanks a lot.